Welcome to the Age-Friendly Dayton podcast. This is a program showcasing insights and fascinating stories about the many age-friendly achievements happening in Dayton. Please welcome your host, Age-Friendly Dayton champion Donna Kastner and producer Terry O'Brien.
Hey, Donna.
Hey, Terry. A very, very special edition of our podcast is about to unfold.
Yeah, remember a while back we had Dean. Dean came in to talk about his basically speaker and all the cool things he's done as a kind of a retiree kind of thing, right? You guys remember Dean? I don't know if you do or not, but we're going to bring Dean back, and we're going to have a really detailed conversation about Dean's book and Dean's experience writing the book and what the book's about. Any more words of wisdom from you, Don, before we bring Dean in here?
I think this is an amazing example of how a life journey moment, a big moment, definitely begins to guide you in even more exciting directions.
All right, so let's bring Dean in. Then I'm going to play a short video that helps promote Dean's book, but it'll give people an explanation of what this thing's about. All right, let's bring Dean in here. Dean, hello.
Hello, Terry. Hello, Donna.
I'm going to put Dean in the middle. There you go. You look good, Dean.
I'm feeling good. Thank you.
You're alive.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
And people may find that's a funny question to ask, but after you hear this story, you'll understand why I asked that question.
Yes.
So, Dean, why don't I roll the video real quick of us, not of us, but of what your book's kind of about, and then we're going to get more in detail about you and the book. Is that all right?
That's great.
So this lasts about a minute and a half, so bear with us, folks, but here's what this book's about.
On November 22nd, 2022, Dean, Rose, and Stephen Wagenspack set out on the first day of their family vacation in St. Croix. The rest of the family were set to join on the following day. But for these three, an adventure at the Inali Bay tide pools was the perfect way to start their vacation. But that adventure would go terribly wrong. The unbelievable story within this book is a real-life account of the events that occurred that day to Dean and his family.
He's gone! He was right there! But where is he?
I can't believe I'm gonna die here, trapped in this small, pitch-dark underwater cavern. I don't know where I am or how the water pushed me here. It's so dark, I can't see any way out. The ledge I stand on and the abyss, the seemingly bottomless pit around me, is all I have. I don't know if my wife and son are still alive. And even if they were, how would they know where to find me? It's hopeless.
All right, Dean. So I want to congratulate you on two things. One, you keep me awake at night. This story freaked me out, and it still does. And I think even after this conversation today, I'm going to have some therapy. So, all right, Dean, please tell the folks what happened to you. You ended up in the bottom of some hole that you fell through, and you saw it there at the end of that video with that person's hand, right?
Yeah.
Somehow you got swept into that hole. You were on vacation with your family. Nobody knew you were alive. You're stuck in a black pit for hours, and you couldn't talk to anybody. Nobody knew you were there. So take us through that day.
Yeah. So this was a family vacation that we had planned for November 22nd of 2022. And this was the first morning. It was a Tuesday morning, the 22nd, that my wife, Rose, and my son, Stephen, and I went down to the Inali Bay tide pools in St. Croix. And we were going there just to check it out, to see what it was like, and see if we wanted to bring the rest of the family down later, a couple of days later when they're all going to be there. So the three of us were in the tide pools. There was one other couple there, so it's very nice. If you've never been to a tide pool, it's simply it's a small pool, wading pool, if you will. It's created by volcanic rock that juts out into the ocean. It blocks most of the waves from coming in. Because the volcanic rock is permeable, the water coming in and out. So the water's, anywhere from maybe a foot to 3 feet deep, and you just get to relax in the ocean and have fun. We were there for a little while. We were on our way to walking out, and I mentioned that I wanted to go check this crevice that was right by the shoreline. The shoreline's kind of a cliff, maybe 40 feet. So I was going to go check that out. My son was in the pool behind me. My wife was up on the rocks. All of a sudden, I got knocked over. What we subsequently found out was the trade winds had brought in some huge waves that we were unaware of. But I got knocked over, and it was like I was in a water slide. I didn't know. I was kind of getting splashed around, moved all around. And what was a water that was up to my shins, about 1.5 feet deep, all of a sudden became like 4 feet of just raging water, like I was in a rapids. It knocked me over, and I was moving rapidly. I didn't know where I was moving towards. And I looked up. My wife was standing on the rock above me as I kind of was flying by her. And I told her I lost my glasses and my hat and my watch. And then the next second, I was gone. And I distinctly can remember the sound. It was a sickening sound of like a thunk is the best I can do it. If you have a disposal at home, and if you ever run the disposal and you flip it and it makes this sound as the water and debris like sucks down, that's what it was like for me. I got deposited down a tube and was pushed into a small cavern that I can best say was like a walk-in closet. So I sunk down about, we're estimating this, somewhere between 6 and 10 feet straight down, and then went round a wall and got put into this pitch black cavern.
Wow. And so this joy-filled day is a vacation with loved ones. It's just like paradise. In an instant, it just flips. I mean, was there a point when you land there and were you disoriented for a while? How did you get a sense of now what?
Oh yeah, I was totally disoriented. I had no idea where I was relative to where I'd been before. And like I say, it was pitch black. I was fortunate that I was standing on some sort of ledge of rock, and that's where the name, the ledge, comes from the book. Because I could see off to my left that I could tell that the it went down, it sunk down. That was the abyss part. So I'm standing on this ledge of rock. I can feel the rock sort of around me, but I have no idea what direction I'm facing, where I was relative to where I was before. There is no potential way out. I can't see any way out.
How much water was in there with you? I mean, was it up to your neck? Do you have
the water was up to my armpits, and then when the waves would come in, it would go up. But luckily, I guess it would lift me up. But unfortunately, I'd be scraped against the rock, and I'd hit my I'd hit my head on the ceiling and come back down. So the water would come up. I'd swallow a bunch of water. I'd land back down on the ledge.
So take us to the other side of this nightmare scenario. You're there. Your poor wife and son, what's going on for them?
Yeah. So my wife saw me disappear, and so she yelled to our son, Stephen, "Your dad, he's gone." And because the water was so deep and changed, Rose couldn't see the hole that I'd gone down. So my son, Stephen, came over, and he started splashing the water because they thought maybe I hit my head and was just underwater. And I learned this later. I don't think we talked about this. I learned this only when I talked to Stephen in much more detail about it. I knew that he had gotten sucked partway down the hole. I thought it was just like to his waist. He told me no. He said I was underwater. He had the similar experience to me, that he was underwater, but he had been able to brace himself. And then when the water kind of eased for just a moment, his head came back up. And then he yelled to my wife, "Mom, if you don't grab me, I'm going to die." So
Really?
I didn't realize that he almost died. I didn't realize that till we talked about it.
Wow.
So my wife was able to, she was stunned, obviously, but she was able to reach out her hand to him, and she was able to grab onto him. And the next wave came, and she kind of held on to him and helped him till he didn't go down. And then she was able to, he was able to scramble up on the rocks. So she almost saw she saw her husband die, almost saw her son die.
Oh my goodness.
So what were you bleeding? Because those rocks look sharp. In that picture where that looks like that would cut you up.
Yeah, I was probably about 75% of my body was cut, other than my face and a little bit on my chest. Everywhere else, I was scraped and cut really badly.
Salt water on cuts, not a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, it wasn't.
So you're in this cavern. She doesn't know where you are. The water comes and goes. You're bouncing around. No light. You can't. You have no idea how big this place is.
No. I can reach back and feel the wall. And I could reach and feel the wall in front of me, and my head kept hitting the ceiling, so I knew where that was. But off to my left, I had no idea what that was like. I just didn't know because it was pitch black.
I mean, it's the most amazing story. Again, will give me nightmares to hear you talk about this because I'm claustrophobic, and this is like the worst part of that whole process is being trapped.
But Terry, there's a happy ending. Okay, just keep reminding us.
Is he alive? I can't tell. Is he still alive?
Yeah, I am. Yep.
So Keith, not Keith, but Dean, you were there for how long?
So I was there alone. I know, I had called out to my wife. She had called out to me. We didn't hear each other. So after 10 minutes, they left. But, after a while, I knew that I was going to die because no one knew I was alive in this place. And I knew that the water was going to keep rising. And eventually I would run out of strength. So
speaking of strength, so Dean, I know you're a person that you run, so you're probably in a stronger position. That probably played in your favor as far as your staying power.
Yeah, there's no doubt that my health was because I am in really good shape. It sustained me. I was able to last on that ledge for 40 minutes, even though I knew I was going to die, and I knew that my wife and son had seen me die. For whatever reason, I didn't give up. I don't even really know why. I just knew that I needed to stay there because I knew that I knew I only had one chance to get out. There was no way I could see any way out, but I knew that if I tried to get out on my own, it'd be one in it because I would never make it back to this ledge. So I don't even know if I really made the decision, but I stayed there. And I really don't know why, other than it was the only logical thing to do, because why would I risk killing myself or maybe something would happen? So
before we get into the rescue, which is an amazing story in its own, what was going through your mind?
Really, there was two thoughts. One is I'm going to die a really slow, painful death. And two was, I can't believe I'm going to die here today. Because again, we had come for a family vacation. It was, we were being as safe as you could possibly be. I'm not a risk taker. I mean, it's sort of like, how does this happen? So I was reflecting on that, I don't know how this could possibly have happened.
So was there any spiritual things that happened to you when you were down in that hole?
Not until the rescue started. I was really focused on trying to just stay alive. That was my sole focus is that I knew another wave was coming. So it was get ready for the wave, Dean. Be ready for it to pick you up. Make sure you can try to stay in the same spot you were at. Try not to drink too much salt water. I was literally just trying to survive. I was really focused on that.
So take us to the rescue. And I got to think hopefulness for your wife and your son is starting to wane. Where do we go with this rescue? How does this rescue come about?
Yeah, the rescue is a series of unbelievable miracles. My wife and son knew I was dead because if you don't see anybody for 40 minutes, they'd actually, as they were working their way back towards the shore, because it wasn't safe where they were, they actually saw my hat floating in the water. So that was kind of like the final thing for them, was to see the hat. And so they were just standing. They'd been able to call 911. They had some help to do that. And so they were just sitting on the shore, which was about 300 yards away from where I was. They were just waiting for somebody to come. And then the first miracle happens is that there are probably 2 people in the world that know those tide pools inside and out. Those 2 people happen to show up after about 30 minutes. I'm underneath the water. They're Carl and Devron. They're 2 natives of St. Croix who take people on tour. So they'll drive you and your family down on a Jeep. They'll bring you to the tide pool. They'll show you around. They'll talk about it, and they'll keep you safe, and then they'll drive you out. And those 2 hear the story from somebody else that, somebody drowned over there. And they immediately left their tour group and came over to my wife and said, "Tell me exactly where he disappeared." And she was able to describe where it was. And they said to her, and she said, she'll never forget that. They said, "We're going to go get him."
Wow.
How did they know that? Did they know there was a ledge there?
They have been to those tide pools probably 500 times. So they knew every inch of those tide pools. And again, there's nobody else that knows it. So they knew where that hole was. And so, they were like, "Okay, we know exactly the spot you're talking about." So they raced out there. But what was really important, what really another big step is that Carl was willing to risk his life for mine, because Rose and Stephen were calling out to me, but they were calling out, they were standing on rocks. So they were maybe 5 feet above the hole calling out because they didn't know where I was. Carl, because they told him, he knew I was in the hole. So he got down on the ground right by that hole with water swirling all around him, where I drowned. I went down and my son almost went down, and he was willing to yell into the hole with all this water around him. He risked his life for me. But because he did that, we were now not very far apart, because I was in the rocks not far from that hole. So the second time he called out, I heard him.
Oh, boy. Wow.
And it was, I'll go back to a question you asked a little earlier. People have said, "Well, your guardian angel was watching out for you, Dean." I got that. I go, I don't know what a guardian angel sounds like, but Carl's voice was a guardian angel's voice. Because, hearing that, again, I'd gone 40 minutes without hearing a soul. And all of a sudden I hear a voice. And so Carl stayed with me, and we talked back and forth through this hole would fill up with water. We couldn't hear each other. When it would kind of not fill up so much, he would yell something to me. He, "Stay strong." And then I would yell back to him. And there'd be times where we wouldn't hear each other. And, I get nervous that he was gone, and we'd call back and forth. His buddy Devron then ran back to the shore looking for a rope, because they can hear me, but they don't know where I am.
Right.
They just know I went down the hole. So they were able to tell my wife and son that I was alive, and obviously those 2 didn't believe.
So if that happened here, let's just say Virginia Beach, just make it up, right? You would have a zillion people, rescue people, to flock to you. At St. Croix, that wasn't the case, was it?
No. To get to this, to get to the tide pool, you get there one of 2 ways. We walked down there. It's a really nice, pretty path through a rainforest. It's about 2 miles. So it's a real nice walk down there. Or you can ride in one of these Jeeps with these guys. But the Jeep comes down, there is no road. It comes down like, because it's a cliffside, it comes down like where the water would if it rained and the water is coming down and creates a little crevice, they drive down that. It takes 30 minutes to drive down 2 miles.
Wow.
All right,
So-
keep going with your rescue because we got lots of stuff to cover now.
Yeah,
And
so
I know we have lots to cover. Let me just say one quick thing. Carl, holy cow. And you know the Yoda, do or do not, there is no try. He was committed. We're
Yes.
going to go get him, you
Yeah.
know?
Wow.
Holy cow.
Yeah,
Oh,
he
keep
absolutely
going.
was. He absolutely was. And so then sort of, we'll call it miracle number 2 happens is that a guy that's actually a rescue volunteer, he and his brother and his brother's girlfriend were going out. They decided to come to the tide pools. He was going to show them to them. So his name's Ben. And Ben, because he does this, he has a Jeep. He usually throws his gear, his rescue gear in because he says he never knows if he's going to get a call for a car accident or a fire or something. So he tossed his rescue gear in. But most importantly, on that particular day, he said, I literally looked in my closet and I saw my rescue rope. And he said, I haven't had that in my Jeep for a year. And he tossed that into his Jeep. If he doesn't bring the rescue rope, I don't make it out. Wow. I don't make it out. So he shows up, and because he was coming to tide pools, he was already sort of on the way there. So he got there probably 30 to 45 minutes sooner than he would have if he had to come from home. So I don't know if I'd have lasted underwater another 30 minutes, but because he was close by.
Did cell phone service work for your wife or son? Or did they have
yeah, they could call 911.
Okay.
That was it. It really doesn't work much more than that. So Ben arrives, he gets the story, he grabs his rescue rope, he goes out with Devron and Carl, and they're standing over this hole, and they go, and Carl literally says to him, we're talking to the rock. Because he doesn't know they don't know where I am. They just know I'm in the rock somewhere, right? And so they say, okay, Dean, we're going to toss the rope to you, grab it. Okay, so you have to picture this in your mind. I'm in a pitch black cave.
Exhausted, by the way, right?
Exhausted. I have no idea where the rope is coming from, what direction. And I'm trying to figure out how is a rope going to just appear and float to me. But they said that's the only thing they could do. And they had no idea what they were doing. They were just like, so basically what Ben just had to do was time the throwing of the rope, like let it go when the water was draining so that it would grab it. And what we were able to surmise later was the rope had to go down, again, 6 to 10 feet down a tube, then out towards the ocean, then around a wall, and then to me. It had to take this curving thing. And this was all, there's no magic. I mean, it's not him directing it. It's just the way the currents worked for me. But I stood there because I couldn't see, right? It's pitch black. I just stood with my arms straight out. And the rope came right across my arms and I grabbed it.
My God.
Yeah. And now comes the next hard part, which is they got to convince me to jump into the water and have them pull me out without anybody knowing how far. Am I 5 feet, 10 feet, 50 feet, 100 feet from them? We have no idea. And I'll be honest, I was totally scared to leave that ledge because the ledge was safe-ish.
Yeah, now you're going to the abyss, right?
Yeah, I'm jumping into the abyss. But eventually, I really don't remember this part, but I jumped in the water and they said I stopped responding to Carl's talking. So they just started pulling the rope in as fast as they could. And they said they could see the rope around a hand, and then they could see an arm, and then they could see a bloody arm. And they just grabbed a hold of me and pulled me up on the rocks.
God, that story again is going to haunt me.
Yeah, I could have never, upon reflection, I could have never made it out because, again, I would have had to go around this corner, around this other corner, and then I would have had to somehow swim up a pitch black hole against the water draining down. I mean, I would have never made it out alive.
Multiple miracles here, and we still got a little ways to go now.
So they get you out, which, again, for those folks, please get this book because, again, it should be a movie, Dean.
It will be.
Someday, hopefully.
So they get you out, you're bloody, they take you to a hospital, but your story's not over yet.
Oh, no. And we won't go into much more about it. But so this was, it took 20 minutes for them to get me out. And then because I was in such bad shape, we had to call a Coast Guard helicopter to come from Aguadilla, Puerto Rico. That's an hour flight away.
Oh.
So we were up in the meantime, 3 more rescuers showed up. So we now have 6 guys. They're all happen to be males. They're up on the rocks with me, but these rocks are sharp. I only had on a bathing suit, and the waves are crashing over the rocks. And so we were up on those rocks for 3 hours while the Coast Guard had to come. And then it was a dangerous mission for the Coast Guard because there's the winds were such. There's this cliff that they have to be careful of. They're not sure how they're going to get me out. So from my wife and son's perspective, they finally see the helicopter. Hooray. The helicopter circles and goes away. Oh, this happens 8 times. Because the helicopter has to figure out what they're doing, and they drop a rescue diver, etc. And they had to move away because when they were close to us, they were whipping up like hurricane force winds that were just smashing us with water and bits of rock. And so they had to leave to let things settle out. So my wife and son don't have any idea what's going on. We all conditioned by the movies where the helicopter comes, it drops the cord, they grab the person, they go and they're out, right?
Right.
No, that's not the way it works in real life. So they were going through a lot, and they're getting intermittent information about me. Yes, he's alive. Yes, he's responsive, but nobody knew because there's no trained, true medical professional. We had no idea how bad a shape I was in, right?
Right.
So we get the helicopter, they take us to the airport, and we get to I get to the hospital. And so I want to talk a little bit about the hospital because it's in St. Croix, which is 50,000 people. The poverty level of St. Croix is 40%. For context, the poverty level in Mississippi, which is the worst in the United States of 50 states, is 20%.
Wow.
So the hospital is it's all stuff I learned later because I didn't remember a lot of hospital stay. The hospital is a 3-story building. 5 years prior, there had been 2 Category 5 hurricanes hit St. Croix. In the interim, or 5 years later, the 3rd floor of the hospital is still condemned because it has water damage. It's never been fixed. The 1st floor, which is where the emergency department was, had no working bathrooms. And the 2nd floor, because they were afraid of mold damage, they kept the temperature about 65 degrees. It was freezing cold. So I brought to the hospital, and they were fantastic. They were working with limited resources, but the people there were fantastic. They took care of me. And
so I have 2 questions for you because we're coming to our threshold here. Your book, donate all the proceeds from your book go to St. Croix Hospital because they desperately need help, right?
Yep.
And how long were you in that hospital when you were there?
I was in the hospital for 2.5 days.
And then what happened?
We had another couple of days in St. Croix where I was doing a little bit of recovery, and then we came back home.
Have you been back?
Yeah. My wife and I went back in June of 2023.
Oh, you're gutsy. I would never go back.
Well, a lot of people said that.
How was that visit? I mean, gosh.
That was so moving. It was incredible. So we got to see and meet the helicopter crew and interview them. We got to meet the people in the 911 center. There's a miraculous story about that's in the book. And for those folks, they never see the person they save. Never. So I was the first person they've ever seen. My wife and I got to thank them. We got to hug them, which was quite meaningful. We then we went to St. Croix. I got to see 5 of the nurses that had been, and we got to see 5 of the rescuers. So we got to see the people again, thank them, hug them. It was quite moving. Carl took us back on a personal tour back to the tide pool. So we got to see the place, and it looked a lot different.
Is that where you got that picture that we saw with the hand?
Yeah, the picture with the hand. Yeah.
Okay.
So
you would think they would fill that in. You'd think some cement truck would come and just dump a bunch of cement down that hole.
Yeah. Yep,
so here you're surrounded by a crew of heroes, just one hero after the next, everyone going the extra mile. Yet you can see where, gosh, if they had a little more to work with, take us where you're going. Because that's the search for meaning seems to be your landing point from this extraordinary experience.
Yeah. Yeah. So, there's been a lot of why did this happen to me? What am I supposed to do with it? Why did I live and others don't live? There's a lot you go through when you're in a situation like this. And what I've learned is that, people, we all are this way. We try to make the story easy, either God saved me or guardian angel saved me, or your time is not up, etc., which all is probably true, but it's really hard when you're the person that's on the end of it, because why am I more worthy than others to be alive? Why did I have all these people that came to my? So I've really been looking for that, and I've it's reinforced for me something that we probably need at these times is that there are a lot of really, really, really good people out there that'll risk their lives for you. They didn't know me. And we
don't hear about them on the evening news, do we?
No, we don't. And so it really is kind of reinforced for me that there really are a lot of good people, and I've really, it's changed my life in that I'm really trying to be more positive about a lot of things. There's one thing I don't share very often, but I'm going to share it with you all because I think this is like really critical. Is my wife Rose and I, we've been married 40 years. We have a great relationship, obviously. But what we've done is we've come up with what we call the hug. And what that is that we spend 10 seconds every day hugging each other. And you're not allowed to do anything other than hug. There's no thinking. There's no talking. There's no pondering. It's just simple connection.
Right.
And we do that every day. It doesn't happen at the same time every day, but it's like sometimes at 8 o'clock we'll go, we haven't had our hug, have we? But it's, there's that you just connect with somebody again, just for a little bit of time, and you let everything else go. And so, we use that as ourselves together. And I've tried to use that with anybody else I encounter is that I can give them 10 seconds of nicety. Hey, how you doing today? Or thanks for your service or whatever. And so, those are some of the things we're looking for meaning. And obviously, whatever we can do to help the hospital is really what we want to try and do monetarily because they need it.
All right, Dean. So your story is absolutely amazing. I mean, the folks out there they need to listen to this, but how do they get your book?
And it's the speaking engagements, right? You're gung-ho going on that. Tell us what more you're doing now and how we can help.
Yeah. So you can go to get the book. It's theledgebook.com.
Okay.
So that's the place to go. And if you go there and buy a book, I'll sign a copy to you and send it to you.
That's great.
That's the
place. But you're also an amazing speaker. Even before this magnificent chapter of your life, you were a TEDx Dayton speaker. You are. I was already a fangirl, Dean. And then took it further. But I'm going to tell everyone, our listeners and viewers out there, if you're looking for a motivational speaker, I mean, you just caught a glimpse of this story, which Dean's amazing. So hire Dean.
Yep. So I'm happy to do talks. I'll tell you, we did a talk last week. I termed it Books and Beers. We did a talk at a brewery. And we had 40 people there, which is really awesome. And, but it was really just talking about the book and then opening up for questions. And so it was a lot of fun. So, we make ourselves available to book clubs, libraries.
I love how you've wrestled for the purpose and meaning behind this extraordinary experience. Some people will just be like, holy cow, I'm so glad I'm here. You and your wife, God bless you, you're taking it a step further. What more can we do?
Yep. So, Dean, I want to thank you for joining us today. I'm going to roll the end credit here, and Donna and Dean, stay on. We'll have a conversation after I roll the end credit. But I want to thank you for this, Dean. This is an amazing story. And again, thanks for the lack of sleep I'm going to get for the next few nights.
Glad to help. No, thanks for having me.
All right. Hold on, guys.
Welcome to the Age-Friendly Dayton podcast. This is a program showcasing insights and